The meeting of the Hawaiian Homes Commission is called to order. The meeting is being held via teleconference, moderated by me, Chairman William Isla Jr. from the
Recording in
DHHL
progress.
Office, Halepono E 91-5420 Kapolei Parkway, Kapolei, Oahu, Hawaii. And today's date is Tuesday, June the 22nd. And the time is now 9:38 a.m. Pursuant to the governor's 21st proclamation related to the COVID-19 emergency, Hawaii Revised Statutes Chapter 92 regarding public agency meetings and records is currently suspended through August 8, 2021. To the extent necessary to enable boards to conduct business without holding meetings open to the public and to allow state agencies the ability to effectively and efficiently provide emergency relief and engage in emergency management functions. At this time, we are able to live stream the open portions of the meeting via the DHHL website. Leah, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Awo. Okay, we'll come back to him. Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Ka'apu is excused. Commissioner Kalekini.
Aye.
Commissioner Kopu. Commissioner.
Here.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Namu'o.
Here.
Commissioner Neves.
Aye.
Commissioner Teruya.
Aye.
Commissioner Awo.
Aye.
Chair Isla.
Here.
Eight members present. We have a quorum.
Mahalo.
Hi, Mr.
So
Awo.
we have a carryover item from yesterday, H1. Is there any public testimony? There is no additional public testimony. The commission will convene in executive session for about 60 minutes at approximately noon. Do you have? Brian Kanakoli is the counsel of record today. And so with us, we have Rodney Bao with regards to H1. Last night, I think all of you had information sent to you. Commission members, do you have any questions for Rodney or for the department?
Chair, this is Dennis.
Yes, go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, I believe I just I sent a note to Rodney about, looks like when you look at H1 attachment A,
Correct.
if you total the column, it comes out to 5,078,200,000. Am I missing a number?
Yeah, I added that column on an adding machine tape. It comes out to $5,732,445.
I have to turn my my adding machine in then, because I added it several times and it only comes out to 5,078. Anyway, I'll trust your adding machine. We'll go from there. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Rodney was nice enough to print it out too. So,
Okay.
any other questions?
I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, proceed, Pauline.
Okay, give me a little latitude because I did not make the budget workshop. And, but I do want to refer to one page, page 15 of that handout. And I just have one question. This particular handout shows the fiscal years 2020, 2021, and 2022. So I just have this one question. In 2020, the legislature appropriated $18,638,060 and gave us 200 positions. And in
Correct.
2021, the legislature gave us 149 positions and $15,532,062. And in 2022, the legislature appropriated us 160 positions and $14,751,668. And I'm assuming that the recommendation is that we utilize $4,373,272 of Hawaiian Homes Operating Fund to achieve parity with the general fund level of 2020. Is that correct?
First of all, as far as the general fund support in 2020, the general fund position count was 200, and we were funded 200 positions. In 2021, the position count was again 200 positions, but the legislature only appropriated funding for 149 positions. And then in 2022, the legislature appropriated appropriated 200 positions as a position count, but only funded 160 positions. So the shortfall to meet some kind of parity is in the non-appropriated funds section below. Can you scroll below, please? There's a difference. So what we did was in fiscal year 2021, you see that 2.4 million that was funded from the operating portion. A large portion of that is for the water systems. So we carried that into the fiscal 2022 budget. And so
Okay,
the difference
Rodney,
is,
Rodney, I'm
Yes?
sorry. It's okay. I understand now. I thought
Okay.
that you were just letting us know that you used this money to augment the amount that the legislature didn't give us. It's okay. That's all right.
Yeah,
All right,
essentially,
thank you.
essentially,
That was my
Pauline,
question. Yes.
essentially, Pauline, you are correct. But it's
right,
more than,
thank you.
more than
Yeah,
just the
that-
salaries.
That's all I really wanted to know is that when you highlighted it, that you were letting us know that you utilized that money to ensure that we could operate. And Joby was correct that we are, you know, it's good that we can do that with our trust funds. Okay, thank you.
With the
Okay, thank you.
non-appropriated trust funds, yes. Any other questions? I can't see. Can you take that? No other questions? Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
comment, Mr. Chair.
Oh, Patty?
Yes, thank you. I just have a comment and I just needed to, I went over the budget and I will support the budget through as many, I think our other commissioners will, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank Rodney, you know, and I didn't do that yesterday when I wish I did, but to thank him and Joby for putting in the budget, you know, it was a Father's Day weekend, correct? And so, you know, and to see them to work late at night and everything, we appreciate all of that. I appreciate the development budget and putting all these projects in for my district that will need the improvements from Nanakuli to Waianae. So I appreciate the funding going into that part of the district on the development CIP projects. But other than that, appreciate the staff's diligent and hard work in putting a budget together. And I realize, I know it's not easy. I've worked with council putting our budgets and everything like that. And it can, but in closing, it's just my appreciation and mahalo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Patty. I'm sure the staff appreciates that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Pauline?
Pauline Namua again. I also want to commend the staff for this. I've worked myself in the governor's office and in the legislature on this process. And I know that historically, this legislative process is one of the most difficult, the most difficult. And for you to have, the staff to have given us this information, the information that you gave, that I printed out, is really a miracle, because you also had to take that information and give it to us in a format that we had to understand. And I know that was not easy. So I commend the staff for doing that for us so that we could understand it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pauline. Yesterday, we jumped so quickly to get into the budget that we didn't have a motion to consider staff recommendation. Can I have that motion now?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second,
So thank you. Any final discussion before we take the vote? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we appreciate the discussion and the need for you to understand and the questions of clarification. So
Yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
taking your job serious and
Yeah,
asking
Chair.
us those hard questions.
Chair, also, I'd like to thank Rodney and his staff.
Yes.
Did a wonderful job. It's not an easy task. So thank you, Rodney, and your staff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rodney.
Mahalo, you folks.
Thank you,
Um,
Rodney.
Okay, thank you.
Aloha, Rodney.
Aloha, mahalo, everyone.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you, Rodney. All right, so Dean is gonna pitch it for one, and we're gonna go to agenda item D1, which is the status reports. Are there any questions, commissioners? No, no action, it's just
Just
the
information.
the monthly reports. Give you
All right, just like yesterday. Very good.
I have a question.
Oh, you like that, eh, Dean? Eh?
I
You
had a
should come more often.
Dean, I had a question.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, no, it's not a question, but I'm just curious because I read through it. And so you have to put this together every month,
This reports?
the status reports. Does
Yes,
it change? It changes every month too, though. Yeah.
That is correct. As we update figures,
I see.
it is updated for your folks' review.
Oh, okay. And again, thank you very much for putting this together for us because I go through it, but it looks like it's a lot of work every month. So thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay. We'll let
Thank you,
we'll let
Dean.
We'll let you exit the table with a sigh of relief.
Juan is walking over here. We're gonna scare him.
So one is coming. Can you let him know that you took care of it for him? Okay. Okay, we'll go to agenda item G2.
I wasn't expecting to get through. I need,
Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess because we need the appropriate staff in the room. Oh, okay, maybe it's gonna be a 1-minute
Okay.
delay. No recess. I see staff walking to get into the room right now as we speak. So hold on a second. It's for information only. The Honokawai Homestead Development Plan Draft Environmental Assessment. So we'll let her catch her breath.
Can I ask Andrew something, Mr. Chair?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi,
Yes,
Andrew. Hi, Andrew. I know we have our consultation tonight, correct?
yes, correct.
Okay. So I want to open I know you asked me to do the pulley and I don't mind, but I want to open and ask one of our kupunas to do, which is Anakia Kirtland.
Okay, do you
Okay.
mind if I
So you can
introduce?
introduce me, then I would like to bring her in though.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll
for the-
introduce you and then
for
you
the-
can introduce her.
Yeah, for the consultation. I appreciate that. Thank you, Andrew. I'll see you tonight.
Okay. Should be a fun meeting.
Yeah.
Oha Commissioners, apology for the delay. You folks are very efficient with the budget this morning. Item G2, for information only. The draft environmental assessment for the Honokawai Homestead Development Plan, Honokawai Lahaina District, Maui, an anticipated finding of no significant impact. With me today, I have Malia Cox. She has been working for the department for a little over 2 years already. Time flies by, but this is her first presentation to the commission. Malia grew up in Waianae. She's a graduate of Kamehameha Schools and has worked in the private sector for planning. And she's just one of the very, very productive staff that the department has. So without further ado, this is Malia Cox.
Aloha and thank you. Mahalo for the opportunity to present the Honokawai Master Plan. We are anticipating a finding of no significant impact, and we are submitting this in preparation for sending this out for public comment next month. Next slide. Okay, next slide.
We don't have anything up yet. Can't see anything. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so today quickly I'll be going over the master planning process that we did in Honoko'ai, summary highlights for the draft environmental assessment or DEA, and then quickly the criteria for a finding of no significant impact that is required to satisfy Chapter 343, as well as going over the project schedule. Next slide. For historical context, the lands in Honoko'ai weren't originally part of the DHHL trust. The lands were controlled by sugar and then pineapple. And then in 1995, it was conveyed to DHHL by DLNR as part of Act 14. So DHHL received the lands in Honoko'ai between 1996 and 2011, but several key components of the larger tract were not included, which included the Honoko'ai Gulch, Honoko'ai Reservoir, and several access and utility corridors. Next slide. In 2003, DHHL developed a master plan for Honoko'ai with some significant community engagement. They were really engaged and wanted to have a complete community as it was the only lands in West Maui. In 2003, a prep notice was submitted to OEQC for the project. Next slide. In 2004, DHHL did a master Maui Island plan and included the Honoko'ai lands in the plan. It was one of only 3 priority projects for Maui and was identified for the first phase of development for the priority plan projects because it was the only land in West Maui. Next slide. In 2004, very soon after the Maui Island plan was done, DHHL received a gift of lands in Leali'i that we had not anticipated receiving. The lands were shovel ready to start development. And so the focus shifted away from Honoko'ai to Leali'i, which was just right down the road, where 104 residential homesteads were quickly able to be developed and have already been awarded. The second portion of Leali'i, phase 1B, will allow for another 250 residential homes to be developed. Honoko'ai still remains a highly desired area by the Maui Island waitlist beneficiaries. Their interest in Honoko'ai continued, and they had discussions with DHHL and on their own between 2004 and today. But DHHL realized that the focus that was in the original plan, which was specifically on residential, really had shifted because of Leali'i. And now we needed to look at something slightly different that was a combination of both residential and agriculture. And this falls in line with the people that are on the ag list or on the applicant lists for Maui. There are actually more on the agriculture list, approximately 4,700 on the ag list, and there are 3,800 on the residential list. So in 2018, so we began this process of going back out for consultation on Honoko'ai. In 2018, there was consultation with regards to the water treatment plant that is located on the Mauka lands in Honoko'ai. And as a result of that planning activities, DHHL has an agreement with the county for up to 200,000 gallons per day of water, potable water, that can be used both in Leali'i and in Honoko'ai. And in 2019, DHHL withdrew the EIS prep notice that was done back in 2003 because it no longer fit with what the proposed planning options were. And in 2019, we started a series of consultation meetings with beneficiaries to update the master plan for Honokawai. Next slide. So in 2019, we started that beneficiary consultation process. The first meeting provided kind of that quick historical background that I just gave you of what happened, but also provided attendees with information about the newer subsistence agriculture homestead lease, which did not exist when they had done the planning initially, and also engaged beneficiaries in focused group exercises so that we could obtain information from them with regards to development patterns, infrastructure, community uses, and lot configurations. For the second meeting, we had created 3 different alternatives that they were able to provide input on. And then by the third meeting that we had with them, we were able to work through and get a agreed upon preferred alternative master plan. Next slide. So these are the 3 alternatives that were shared during the second meeting. And then ultimately one of these was refined in the third meeting. The one on the top left was a focus. The focus was on subsistence agriculture, but with 2 different types of lots. There was a smaller lot that was 1 half acre size, that's the dark green. And then the lighter green, which was kind of the remainder of the project, is larger lots that are 1 to 2 acres. This particular alternative allowed for fairly substantial areas of community agriculture uses. And so there was a little bit, we were able to get a little bit higher lot count out of that one. The one below it, this one was all subsistence ag and not really any community agriculture areas. So this one had all of the lots on this one, the lots were 1 to 2 acres. This one had the smallest lot count and did not really allow for a lot of different homesteading opportunities. The third one on the top left was a combination of single and multifamily residential, as well as subsistence agriculture. This particular provision provided significantly more lots than the other 2 alternatives, but still provided the focus to be on subsistence agriculture. Next slide. Based on the preliminary input, environmental constraints, and the needs of the department, this preferred plan was selected. This particular one allowed for the concepts of the complete community that were developed in the original plan from 2003 to be integrated into it. The preferred plan evaluated both the natural and built environments as part of the environmental review process. It included community areas, it included multifamily and residential, multifamily and single family homestead residential, and the multifamily had a variety of different inputs that it could potentially be, including townhomes, kupuna housing, et cetera. To get to this particular preferred plan, we needed to, there were several steps that needed to happen along the way. Oh, that's okay. Next slide, please. So this is sort of the process that has happened thus far. We have conducted the outreach, we've conducted some technical studies, we've developed various options and alternatives, and ultimately came up with a preferred plan. So now we are here at the development of the draft environmental assessment. So we have, while we were doing all of this master planning, we were also creating the draft EA, and we are here now sharing it with you prior to submitting it to OEQC, which will hopefully happen on July 8th. I'll discuss the bottom section of this slide after we've talked a bit about the components of the draft EA. Next slide. So here we can go into some details of what the components of the master plan include. Of the 777 acres within Honokawai, 536 or 69% of it will be for the development of homesteads. The vast majority of it, 417 acres of it, will go towards subsistence agriculture. because these are larger lots. So will be 1 to 2 acres. And we anticipate that we should get approximately 250 lots out of that. There's a much smaller percentage that will be focused on residential homesteads. So only about 14%. However, by choosing an option that provides both residential, single family, as well as multifamily options, there's an opportunity to create up to 878 lots that can be awarded to applicants on the Maui residential waiting list. Next slide. Providing a complete community that has kind of all of the amenities nearby was really important, both in the 2003 master planning process, as well as this later one that we just did for the last couple years. So those things are integrated into this plan. In the purple area, that's identified as community commercial. This area, we wanted to give the future lessees as much flexibility as they could have to figure out what their community really needed. And so when we did the environmental assessment, we assumed that it was going to be a fairly intense, high intensity use, just so that they have the flexibility to do something that might be more intensive. But if they choose to do something less intensive, it still would be covered by the environmental assessment. So these, based on what the attendees shared with us, the things that they were looking for were possibly agriculture support activities, care facilities, which could include kupuna housing, daycare, educational facilities, community facilities, or a farmer's market. So the area is really going to be developed in the future by the lessees that are living in Honokawai. There are community agriculture areas as well. This was an important aspect of the planning as well, because there are residential homesteads in the area, and that would give them an opportunity also to be involved in agriculture. So there's approximately 16 acres that are proposed for the development for community ag. And again, this will be up to the community how this will eventually play out. So it could be areas for tree crops, it could be garden plots, it could be agriculture education incubator. So it's a little bit flexible at this point. And then being able to get around in the community is also really important. So there's a lot of paths that are connected to parks that are integrated throughout the concept. So whether you live up Mauka or if you're down Makai, closer to the highway, there are parks and walking paths proposed throughout. Next slide. This last set of uses are really provided because you need to be able to connect one area to the other and to provide buffers. So the first area in red, that's in the bottom left of the map, that area is proposed for industrial because it is sited right next to the wastewater treatment plant. Nobody wants to live next to a wastewater treatment plant, no matter how good that plant is. So this provides a buffer between the houses and the homesteads and the plant. The next area is the conservation areas. Those are in brown. So those are along the 3 gulches that bisect the Honokawai lands. So those provide setbacks that can provide erosion control. So these are areas that we are trying to protect. They are also the areas that when we did do our evaluations that we found some archaeological sites, they were all within the gulches or within the buffers that we've created along the gulches. The next set is the roads and county facilities. So the county facilities are in purple, in blue. They have already been developed. So one is the the water treatment facility, Mahina Hina, up in the upper left in the north side, as well as an existing reservoir. And there's also a space for another reservoir to be built as well. The other component, the last thing that we need to talk about are the roads. So the Department of Transportation has in their master planning proposed a bypass to go through Honokawai lands to provide some traffic relief. And so it's known as the Lahaina bypass. It has not been fully funded by DOT, but DHHL has integrated that within the plan and has also proposed setbacks so that people aren't right next to that roadway. There are 3 access points that are proposed to connect Honokawai to the Honoapi'ilani Highway. 2 of the access points, the upper 2, are already have stub outs directly to the highway. The third one, the one on the bottom, that one is still going to require coordination and easements from surrounding landowners because we do not have control of that particular parcel. In total, the interior roads, as well as the Lahaina bypass and the setbacks, will account for about 73 acres. The remaining acreage is for the county facilities. Next slide. We evaluated the infrastructure as a major component of the planning and environmental evaluation process. So we looked at roads, which we just talked about, grading, runoff, drainage, and erosion control. And all of those things, the way that we will be handling those is we will definitely meet county drainage requirements. We've talked about having the conservation areas with some setbacks. We'll have retention basins and grass road. We'll have grass roadway and lot swales along the edges of the roadways to help with the drainage. The three things that are on this list here that are probably of biggest importance are the potable water supply, non-potable, and the wastewater. For potable water, we currently have adequate water to supply phases 1 and 2, which I'll talk about in a second, through agreements that we currently have with DWS and the development of a new well that is another governmental agreement between HHFDC and DHHL. The remaining phases of the project will be developed as additional water supply is secured. We do have adequate water supply for irrigation through 2 different sources. One is through R1 water from the Lahaina Wastewater Reclamation Facility, which they currently have approximately 2 million gallons per day of surplus, as well as water from DHHL has been approved to a 2 million gallon per day surface water reservation from the Commission of Water Resources Management. With regards to wastewater disposal, the wastewater treatment plant currently is operating at about 45% capacity. So there is significant space and capacity to handle the entire project area. Next slide. We did do, as part of our evaluations, we looked at historical and cultural resources. So I talked a little bit about most of all the archaeological sites that we found were within the gulch areas. They're identified by these stars on this map. I do want to talk a little bit about the Land Commission Awards. So at the onset of the Great Mahele in 1848, Honokawai was initially retained as Crown lands. However, after time, 59 Kuleana claims were successful in the area. And of those 59, 58 of them also received royal patent grants, which were a royal patent grant was for the purchase of lands outright. So those are shown here on the map in the peach overlays. As part of this evaluation of cultural and natural historical resources, there was definitely a conversion away from traditional agricultural practices, and that resulted in water permanently being transported out of the watershed through diversions, water agreements in favor of sugar and pineapple industries. And those are still in effect today. So although there's a lot of water that is surrounding Honokawai going through the gulches, in ditches, most of it is not actually accessible to DHHL. Next slide. Honokawai is dominated by 3 major drainage ways. Onepeha Gulch, which drains to Honokawai Reservoir, which is not DHHL's. Honokawai Stream and Kanaunau Stream and Gulch, both of the Kanau stream drains into Honokawai Stream and Gulch. Both of those do go to the coastal waters in the area. Because of the way they drain, DHHL has already started working with groups like West Maui Ridge to Reef to create buffer treatments to make sure that erosion and sediments aren't going into the ocean. As far as natural resources, there were no endangered or threatened species observed during the evaluations. There were a couple of host plants that were identified, A'ali'i, which is a host plant for the native green blue butterfly, and the tobacco tree, which is not a native, but is a host plant to the endangered black burned sphinx moth. Next slide. The proposed project was evaluated to determine its impacts on all of these areas that are listed on your screen. For most of these, there was not an anticipated impact, or if there was, it was a short-term construction impact that could be mitigated through best management practices. There were a couple that I do want to highlight on this list. Okay, the first is the biological resources. Although we did not find any species, there are some, we do want to be able to mitigate for the potential of certain species being there. So those included the Hawaiian hoary bat, which will be done through avoidance, particularly when they are pupping, as well as we can mitigate for the potential impact to seabirds, and that will be through the avoidance of nighttime construction, particularly when the baby seabirds are fledging. And then the third one is with regards to the black-burned sphinx moth. Again, we didn't see any, but we did find their host plant. So we will be working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife with their guidance with regards to site clearing, particularly of their host plant, the tobacco tree. Okay, the other one that is also of importance is the human-made hazards. So the area was used for agriculture for a long period of time, and there was some unauthorized dumping that occurred. These are both mitigatable impacts. So DHHL will work with the Department of Health to evaluate whatever residual pesticide risk there may be, and with cooperation with them, determine the appropriate restrictions and remediation actions that need to happen. All right. And then the last one is with regards to infrastructure and utilities on this list. The water supplies within the aquifer are sufficient to support the entire proposed action. So although we currently have wet water for the first two phases, there is actually adequate water to support the entire action. And the water needs have been identified. The actions water needs have been identified in the state water projects plan that was adopted in 2017. All right, that's it from that list. Next slide. Based upon the analysis completed in the DEA, the draft DEA, we anticipate no findings of significant impact for the project. This determination is based on 13 criteria of significance that approving agencies must consider as specified in the Hawaii administrative rules. So we will not be committing any, irrevocably commit any natural, cultural, or historical resources. Next, we will not curtail the range of beneficial uses of the environment. Next, we will not conflict with the state's environmental policy or long-term environmental goals established by law. We will not have a substantial effect on the economic welfare, social welfare, or cultural practices of the community or state. We will not have a substantial adverse effect on the public health. Although the project will increase the population in the immediate area, the population increase has been planned for through long-range land use and infrastructure planning that has been done by DHHL, the County of Maui, and the State of Hawaii. Next, we will not involve a substantial degradation of environmental quality. Next, the proposed project does not instigate a commitment for larger actions. Long-term land use planning and infrastructure planning have been identified in the planning area and for the surrounding lands for the development. And as such, DHHL, the County of Maui, and the state have been developing or are projecting infrastructure improvements to support this development. Next. The project does not have a substantial effect on rare, threatened, or endangered species or its habitat. The project will not have a substantial adverse effect on air or water quality or ambient noise levels. The development will not affect environmentally sensitive areas. Buffers are proposed adjacent to the gulches and streams. And the project development areas are outside of floodplains and inland from the coast, away from tsunami zones, sea level rise, exposure areas, and beaches. Next. The project will not have a substantial adverse effect on scenic vistas, view planes during the day or night that are identified in county or state plans or studies. And finally, the proposed project will increase energy consumption over the current use, which is vacant land. However, the energy consumption of the proposed use is not considered substantial, and DHHL has been developing and is implementing its own renewable energy policy. Next. Now, if we go back to this slide, we can look at the bottom three things. Once the plan is submitted to the OEQC, there will be a 30-day public comment period where we will be receiving comments and revise the draft based on those comments. We anticipate that will happen in August and September. Then we'd like to come back to the commission in the middle of September for approval from the commission on the final EA and finding of no significant impact. Should the commission choose to approve it, then it'll get republished as a final EA in October. And then there's a 30-day challenge period once that is published for the public to challenge the EA. Sufficient budget will need to be allocated by the commission and DHHL to implement the project, moving it out of planning and into design and construction. There also needs to be a willingness by current and future decision makers to follow through with the various actions of the project that will be needed to ensure successful implementation. Next. In addition to the completion of the final EA and the commission declaration of a FONSI, there are other actions that need to happen, and this is a list of those actions. Next. In addition to sufficient budget, DHHL will be phasing the project based on secure, adequate potable and non-potable water for each phase of development. And we currently have adequate water to develop phases 1 and 2. Phase 1 would include 57 subsistence agricultural lots in 1 park. And phase 2 would include an additional 59 subsistence agricultural lots, 335 residential single family lots, 4 more parks, and 1 more community agriculture area. And that is it.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner?
Yeah, yes, Chair. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Brad.
Brad. Okay. Malia, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Awesome. I just wanted to know, when you had the consultation, was everyone receptive to your presentation? Did you have any opposition?
I'll answer that question. Julie kind of took the lead in the consultation process. I think for the most part, most of the beneficiaries that participated were receptive to the department developing additional homestead there. The one predominant question that we got throughout the consultation process was, when can we get our lots? That was the predominant question that was asked of us. So it seems like there's a strong interest in homesteading, in particular subsistence agriculture homesteading, and that our beneficiaries would like to see this happen sooner rather than later. And I actually see Julie on the call now. So Julie, did you have anything else to add?
I wanted to say that actually there was a lot of support for this project. We've been waiting for it for a long time. it was interesting when we first went out, you know, we thought we would come up with an agricultural kind of community. And they said, well, what about residential? And we thought, okay, well, we have Leali'i, but so we added in residential. And then they're concerned that to make it really clear that they want agriculture first. You know, it's not like we do residential and they have to wait. So we did adjust the phasing to accommodate that. So we do have residential and even multifamily for the like kupuna, but they want the ag part to move first.
And I also just wanted to add one last thing. In the draft environmental assessment report, one of the appendices are the meeting notes from the consultation meeting. So if you folks wanted to refer to the comments that were received during the meetings, it's one of the appendices in the draft environmental assessment report that we submitted as part of this packet.
Randy?
Yeah, so first, thank you for that really well done presentation, very informative. I also want to acknowledge the effort and the work of our department and the participation by the beneficiaries who were part of the collaboration. And when I look at this, I see it's a very complex project. There's many, many moving parts. And when I look at the conceptual, what a beautiful plan. I mean, it has everything that any resident could think of to make their lives better. And certainly as a project that's being proposed by DHHL, I feel really good about this and proud of everyone who was a part of this. So, and we still have a ways to go. It's contingent on funding. It's contingent on water development. There's a lot of things that still have to be done, but thank you to the department and to everyone who continues to be part of this dream. It's really wonderful to look at. Thank you.
Mahalo, Randy. Other commissioners, any questions? I will.
Yes, I did have one.
Go ahead, Patty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for a well-planned put together. Congratulations, Commissioner. Well, that's Maui, and that's beautiful. It's a beautiful plan to look forward to. My question was, the 72 acres that you mentioned in community use, is that used, Julie, for suggestions from beneficiaries to have parks in that master plan?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. As part of the first consultation meeting, one of the questions we asked community were what types of uses that they would like to see. So there was a whole range of different types of uses that people identified. In this initial stage of planning, we just wanted to make sure that we set aside enough acreage to potentially accommodate most of those uses. The specific types of uses that will be developed in those areas will occur at a different time when we actually have lessees, a homestead association, and they will take the lead in determining what will not occur in those areas.
Correct. And the other one was the, you have 16 acres on the side for industrial use. Industrial use can be used for nightclubs, correct? Is that kind of zoning that industrial use zoning can create?
I'm not sure what the particular zoning code is on Maui,
Okay.
in Maui County for the industrial use area. I think it's one of those areas that first and foremost, we wanted to make sure there was an adequate buffer between the wastewater treatment plant and a homestead lot, because as Malia said, no one really in particular wants to live right next to a wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
The specific type of use in that industrial area buffer, I think we can talk about more I think if there is concern for specific types of uses, we can definitely add that these uses in the future should not be located in this area. But the main point for that area was to make sure that there is an adequate buffer between the homestead community and the wastewater treatment plant.
And then the last one, Andrew, I had a question. You know, when an EA goes on to OEQC, you already had a beneficiary consultation, which we're looking at. Can a non-beneficiary comment on the OEQC to change the recommendation of what beneficiaries talked about? I'm just curious how that goes.
Thank you for that question. Yes, so as Malia mentioned, there is a 30-day public comment period. So beneficiaries, non-beneficiaries can comment on it. We take all comments into consideration, but we need to balance those comments with the mission of the department to provide more homesteading to our beneficiaries.
I think the key is this: the environmental assessment identifies impacts. So, like if a comment comes in and says, you know, you missed this impact, then we would want to probably identify that and mitigate the impact. But as far as changing recommendations, unless it's directly related to impact, I don't see that really happening.
Thank you very much, Andrew and planning team. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, other commissioners, any questions?
Chair, this is Dennis.
Yes, Dennis.
Yeah, I just want to commend the department and the team for the collaboration with the beneficiaries and all the behind the scenes stuff. You don't see, and I know Julie gets involved in a lot of that stuff, and sometimes us Hawaiians can be hard headed, but it's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work. I appreciate all of the work they do, and we look forward to this type of collaboration in all of our apualas. Thank you very much.
It really, I need to mention, it really helps to have, these beneficiary leaders in the community. Blossom was very helpful with this. She was involved with the first plan, and she has kind of, really pulled together a solid working group that are young, and they have this to look forward to. So that was really nice. So mahalo to Blossom for her help.
Mahalo to the group. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, if there are no further questions, we will allow the planning team to step back from the table for a while, and then I will take a 10-minute recess, and when we come back, entertain a motion to go into executive session. So 10-minute recess. Back? Okay. Hello, Commissioners. Go again, entertain a motion that the commission convene an executive session pursuant to section 92-5 subsection A subsection 4 HRS to consult with its attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the commission's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of going into exec session, say aye.
aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. We have regular session. Next meeting is July 19th and 20th. Will likely be electronic. For us to shift to in-person meetings, especially on the neighbor islands, requires a lot of advanced work, getting rooms in hotels, etc. So even though the pandemic may be declared open, it's still going to take us a month or maybe two to set up live meetings again. So just want to prepare you for that.
All right.
Asking all commissioners not to run away because we have one contested case issue, which should be really, really quick after we adjourn and then reconvene for a contested case. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? See none, the motion carries. Give us 1 minute to clear the room.